Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. It's a pleasure to invite you back on that special hour where you get to see what is actually happening in our world, the truth, the innovation, the discoveries, the advancements. And tonight, we have something very special for you, so let's get right to it, because recent global research points to a concerning picture in our world. The 2026 Edelman Trust Barometer found that 7 of 10 people worldwide are unwilling, or listen to this, or hesitant to trust someone with different values, backgrounds, or beliefs. And this reveals a growing crisis of social trust. The same global survey reports that about 61% of the people have a moderate or high sense of grievance, believing that institutions serve narrow interests rather than the public good. And 4 in 10 say hostile actions, including online attacks, spreading misinformation, property damage, even violence, can be justified to bring about change. Imagine that. The World Happiness Report of 2025 concludes that declining trust is a major factor behind rising political polarization and weakening social cohesions in many, many countries. In a world that seems divided, time-tested principles could have the power to transform our world. And tonight, we're going to highlight one of those programs, the Way to Happiness program, a non-religious common sense guide written by humanitarian Ron Hubbard, to encourage strengthening families and communities through simple but practical principles. And at the heart of these principles is one timeless idea: treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. And in this perspective, we have the privilege of speaking with an extraordinary human being whose life's work has focused on transforming lives. And Buddha, let's put up his pictures up on the screen, please. There you go. He's got a great smile, wonderful wife. He's a lucky man. Mr. Greg Capozzorio. There you see him with his lovely wife. And this man has dedicated his entire life focusing on transforming lives and helping others create safer communities globally. He was born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa, to Portuguese immigrant parents, and then began his career in criminal reform with the Gauteng Department of Probation, in 1995. Imagine, it was 31 years ago. Just a few years later, he expanded rehabilitation efforts into the South African prison system, implementing the Criminon program and rehabilitating in 26 prisons in only a 2-year span. From 2003 to 2016, Greg served as president of Criminon International, headquartered in Los Angeles, leading a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping incarcerated individuals rehabilitate and return to society in a productive, responsible way as citizens of that community. Throughout his career, he's worked with government leaders and correctional officers across Africa, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, North and South America, meeting with U.S. legislatures and correctional leaders, and helping establish rehabilitation programs in countries including Panama and Rwanda. In recognition of his extensive humanitarian global service, Mr. Capozzorio received an International Freedom Medal, given to very few in this world. Today, he's a lifelong ambassador to Criminon and the countries to support rehabilitation initiatives and helping these men you see on the screen all across the world. And please join me in welcoming humanitarian and Freedom Medal recipient and our special guest tonight, Mr. Greg Capozzorio, to A Time for Truth show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Ben. It was a very nice introduction. Thank you.
Well, it's very easy when you have someone with a heart that you have going to such a violent environment with total confidence and that smile that you have. You deserve all the accolades I just gave you. So
I suppose it does help, right?
I think it's not to be underestimated what you've done. And so first I wanted to start right to it because I know we have a lot to share. Okay. So what is the way to happiness? What is this way to happiness?
It's a common sense moral code, right? It's a common sense guide to better living. And if you look at all the precepts and all the principles in it, it makes so much sense when you follow them that every time when you read the first one, like take care of yourself, or even prior to the first one, there's like a zero or like a fundamental of what the definition of happiness is. And it gives the reader and it gives the individual who's seeking happiness. And I think, per survey, you were given the stats there of the happiness level or the happiness ratio on the planet. And it looks like a lot of people, there's 8.5 billion people on this planet. A lot of them want to be happy in whatever they're doing. And I'm sure we walk around in the streets and we do business in our daily life and we experience the ups and downs. We experience the travails and the wins in life. But the way to happiness is this. It's like Mr. Hubbard said, it's like pouring oil on the waters to calm the water. If you have a turbulent sea, when you go and you put the way to happiness into an area, it calms the area down. So from my experience of putting it into the criminal justice system, it's been nothing short of miraculous. In the face of it can't be done, it's never been done, these men or women won't respond, they're just there to waste your time, and yet time after time, it just the application of those principles has led to changed environments, improved environments, changed individuals. Like Mr. Hubbard said, in what the reason behind a criminal is a loss of self-respect. Like at that point where the individual does not respect himself anymore is when he starts to become a criminal. So the whole purpose of using the way to happiness in the Criminon program is to help the individual restore that decency, that kindness, that integrity in the individual. And it's remarkable. The results are remarkable.
Well, I was going to say that it must be a tremendous program because for you to get a result with what I guess we would assume would be the most difficult portion or sector of our society, people have gone totally off the rails that we incarcerated. So I'm curious because, you know, you have a very easy, kind of happy-go-lucky character. What was it like? Because, you know, I think by giving some of that to our viewers, it's much easier for them to confront just a regular community or maybe their own family that may be difficult by itself. But what was it like going in and confronting in this criminal system?
I mean, I think the first thing that helped me was my view was that I was not there to judge them. You know, those individuals that are incarcerated, they're already judged already. They've been arrested, they've been prosecuted, they've come before the judge, they've received their sentence. They're now, you know, taken out of society, put into a prison and a cell and an enclosed environment and kept there out of harm's way, you know, so that they can, you know, learn their lesson or whatever it is. So I think what really helped me was I wasn't there to judge them. I didn't care. I mean, I cared about their crime, you know, because I get mad when I see crimes being committed for no reason, because it usually tends to be for no reason. But the men and women, once they're there, it's not going to help me or help them if I continue to judge them, you know? It's not going to. So my premise was always like, I don't care what you've done. I want to know, what are you going to do what do you want to do now and into the future? Like the first time I went into a prison in South Africa, I remember asking the gentleman, I asked the guys, you know, I said, I need your help to change this country, you know, and they were astonished. They were like, nobody's ever asked them for their contribution or their help or their responsibility. But I asked it of them. I said, I need your help to help me change this country. And that's what got them to respond. And I just realized that if I use that avenue, you know, if, like you're talking about, you know, folks going to be watching this show, and if they have a relative or somebody that maybe is just a little bit going left of center or right of center, like a little bit off the track, is just to go, okay, first of all, man is basically good. You know, he's basically good. And you can see that everywhere, because if we have 8.5 billion people, there's not 8.5 billion crimes being committed every day.
No,
you know,
right.
You know, so man is basically good. So if you operate from that basis, that fundamental, you can then you can read and see, you know, these principles that are in the way to happiness make sense. You know, he may not agree with them because he may have, you know, it says in there, do not steal. He may have stolen, but I bet you he will agree that he wouldn't like his stuff to be stolen, you know?
That's right.
Know? So it's from
when
that
it hits home, when it hits home,
yes,
right?
It hits home because the individual, he knows that he has no more he has lost his self-respect. He knows that. You know, when you bring that up, and it's interesting, just highlighting those points to them, not in an accusative manner or make wrong, just, you know, okay, look, have a look at this. You know, I would ask guys, how many of you been, when I would do surveys of the, you know, to introduce the program, I would ask the group of men or women in the room, and I'd ask them, how many of you have been to prison more than once? And every time, every hand would go up, more than once.
Wow.
Then I'd ask, more than twice. All the hands go up again. It was an average of between 4 to 5 times that the people that these folks had been in and out of prison. So I asked them, like, why do you keep coming back? And they had no answer. No answer.
Wow.
When I'd ask the officials, the guards, the social workers, they had no answer either. Some of them had an answer based on some psychological, you know, dream or something. I don't know, it just never made sense, you know. So, but these men and women never knew why they couldn't come back, because even though they practiced their faith, so, you know, a bunch of them, but they would keep coming back to prison. And that's why the point that Mr. Hubbard made, and the point that I've seen demonstrated in over 30 years, is that restoration of self-respect really gets the individual back to battery. It gets him back to the fundamentals.
Makes total sense. You know, it's interesting that that's what occurred with them. And your question and your approach is fantastic, really, because you could implement that in your house with a neighbor.
Yeah.
You know, how are we going to make our neighborhood better? Or what do you think? How can we change what's going on in the family? You know, and it's a great approach. And in that way to happiness, I know there's a precept 20, which is like a golden rule. I think you told me that you have a booklet with you, right? I think you told me you had one of those. Okay, so can you do me a favor? Turn to that precept that you were telling me about, that precept 20, about this golden rule. And I wanted to ask you, like, how do you think this principle should be utilized, or how have you utilized it? You know, you've done this so much, so go ahead.
I mean, it says, the precept says, try to treat others as you would want them to treat you. You know, so if you want somebody to be mannerly to you, you should originally be mannerly to them. If you want somebody to be kind to you, be kind to them. You know, it's not a reaction. It's like, try to treat them as you would want them to treat you. You know, with respect, with manners, with dignity, with honesty, with respect, you know, with all the human values that are there. So when you do that, it doesn't bounce back at you. You're not sitting there waiting. You know, sometimes you come across people that are entitled. You know, they feel that they need to receive a good action before they deliver a good action. That has never been the successful action. You know, it's like this example of, you see a man comes into a town, or he comes up over the hill and he's looking down at a town, and he looks at the town, and there's two options he can have. The one option could be, whoa, I'm going to love this town. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to pay, you know, I'm going to respect their culture. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to enjoy them. And when he goes in there and he does that, he has a fantastic time. Then you could adopt another viewpoint of, well, look at this crummy place, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be horrible, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like their culture, and I'm pretty sure there's, you know, and when he goes in there, he's sour and he gets into fights, and he wants to leave as soon as possible. You know, so this precept, this golden rule, which has been in, you know, it's been around 2,000 years or more, you know. It's been around that long and proliferated into other, you know, religious beliefs or faiths or practices. But it's definitely one that has stood the test of time. If you want to be happy, treat others as you'd want them to treat you.
Create it, disseminate it, plant it.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because I live in New York City.
Yeah,
and it's great city, tremendous energy, a lot of opportunity, you know, constant motion. So I like that. But you know, this would be great because sometimes you're sitting at the light and the light hasn't even changed. And you get this horn beeping at you and you go, what happened? And I look at the light and the light is still, and then it finally changes. So I'm wondering what would happen in New York City because that would be a great precept for traffic lights and so many different things. I mean, absolutely. Oh, it like makes so much sense. So
yes,
how does this program, and you can talk about it because you've done so many different avenues where you've applied this. How do you think this is affecting? Because everybody's worried nowadays with economics, with getting, we want to get everything moving. We don't want to go into a recession. And so, how do you feel this dovetails, or maybe even is causing these economic experiences that we're having to deal with?
I think it's because if you look at, you take that golden rule, and even if, try to treat others, let's just start off with honesty, right? If you're going to be honest from the get-go, like, are you you could get into the social benefits, or you just look at the economy where there's an out exchange, where there's not a parity of production, and do people work an honest day? Do people honestly create on their posts? Do people honestly take time off to go and be with their kids and enjoy with their kids? Do they, you know, do they treat their friends as they want to be treated? Do they treat their fellow man? Do they treat their wife and kids? So do they treat their boss or their employee, you know, or their colleagues? So it definitely takes it's a different view from which to look at life, as opposed to what's been done to me, and I should now justify my actions on what's been done to me. The rule doesn't say try to treat others that have treated you badly. You know, it says try to treat others as you would want them to treat you.
You know, it makes total sense. I'll share an experience with you, because as you were talking, I thought about my own office, and I'm a surgeon. I'm an implant and gum surgeon for about 46 years now. I can't believe how long. But it's interesting because it's a few months ago, I was having problems with an employee. And the employee wasn't really acknowledging, and the employee wasn't really listening. I didn't know if they were getting the work done or not. And it was getting very frustrating for me. And then I said, you know, let me change my tack on this. And let me just speak to them more. I wasn't even going to do anything special. I just started speaking to them about the day, not about the job, not about whether they finished the project. I just told them about the day. I said, wow, it's really hot today. What do you think? It's like, I hope it gets cooler. And I got them talking with me. And it's interesting because as you were saying this, there's so many myriad of different ways we can apply it that really make it natural, right? I mean, let's talk a little bit about that, because, you know, some people may have tried this, but maybe it didn't work for them. How would you recommend to go about it? How about, I tell you what, let's take an example of maybe something you saw within your life or somebody else's life, and maybe how you changed it or what you saw needed to be changed, so that our viewers can kind of get an idea of how to implement this in a successful and a natural way.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to give you an example of, it's interesting. I'm going to give you an example of what occurred in a prison. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I mean, that's even better, right?
Okay, good. So there was this one prison in South Africa that there was a maximum prison, and I'd advanced Criminon into the prison, and then 2 years later, now I'd got a lot of work done in that prison. We had a lot of traction. There was a maximum prison, so these guys are in there either for, from 30 years upward, 30 years or life, wow. Double life. These are long sentences, right? And you'd expect these guys to be the worst of the worst, right? And they do put on that persona. They do put on that front. So I'll never forget. So we start in 2000. So 2 years later, I'm going into the prison. No, a year and a half later, I'm walking into the prison with the head of internal security. And he says to me, we had 2 fights this year. And I was like, okay, how many did you have the year before? And he said 1,067. Wow. And I said, wow, what did you do to drop the fight rate? Did you lock the men up? Did you have them under gun surveillance all the time? What were you doing? Did you sleep? Did you, put them in solitary confinement? What did you do? And he got so agitated with me, he poked me in my chest, and he said, it's your program. And I immediately disagreed with him because I couldn't believe it. I said, what do you mean it's our program? I don't believe you. And he said, well, your graduates stopped fighting, and also the gang leaders that are on your program stopped giving the orders to fight. Just to give you some background data, in that prison, which I found out, there were 4 gangs vying to control the prison. And you can imagine, this is a family show, so I won't give you all the gory details, but you can imagine what they're trying to control, right? But those 4 gangs were trying to control the prison, and every day, 7 days a week, there were 3 to 4 gang fights a day, right? And our Criminon graduates, according to the head of internal security, said that it was our program that reduced it to 2. So I went to ask my guys, how the heck did you do this? How did you do this? Because I wasn't aware of it, because when I would go there, all the guards would be there, but my guys were all in in a room or in the big quadrangle, and I would be talking to them and getting their lessons and asking how they're going, and they were moving along. And so I found out that there were two gang leaders that had become graduates of the program. And the one guy said to me, Greg, let me tell you, I didn't like it when you first came here because you were messing with my business. And I was like, okay, I get it. Then he said, but then he said this. He said, but I started noticing that the inmates that were on the inmates that were on your program, they started just being more respectful. They started being more relaxed. They started being more less violent. And he said, and I realized that I wanted that. But as a gang leader, I couldn't show that. He had to be the tough guy. So he said, and he says to me, I used to sleep with one eye open every night because I'd be afraid I'd have one of my lieutenants at my cell door to protect me in case somebody tried to fight, take me out or attack me while I'm sleeping. But I would also have my attention on my lieutenant. Like, can I trust him? Has anybody gotten to him? This is what you learn from the life that these guys go through in prison, right? So he says to me, so what I did was I went to one of your Criminon graduates, and I said to him, he's got to sign me up on the program, but he dare not tell anybody that he signed me up. So it's like, okay. So then he fast forward, he gets through the program. When I met this guy, Jimmy, he was the last guy that I thought would be a gang leader or even a gang member. Lovely looking guy, calm, nice, and then I said, okay, how did you stop the fights? He said, okay, so we got together, myself and the other gang leader that was also a graduate and 4 other inmates. So it's just 6 of them decided like that's enough of the fights because it would create havoc. Like just let's say you're talking amongst your friends and there's a signal, right? Some kind of signal. And then the next thing they've got to beat each other up, right? And this was happening 3 times a day. So he said, what we decided to do was we're going to go, okay, because we don't want to fight and we've got our self-respect back. This is what we're going to do. As soon as there's a signal to fight, we're going to fold our arms and step back against the nearest fence or the wall, just so that we can't get hit from the back. So we cannot get hit from the back, right? So I said, okay. So he said, so we did that. That was it. I said, what do you mean? He said, yeah, that was it. That's what we did. Every time there was a fight, I would fold my arms, step back against the nearest wall. And then, so I said to him, okay, what happened the first time that occurred? And he says to me, what do you mean? I said, tell me, what did you get beaten up? He said, of course. So I said, did you fight back? Because I was thinking, okay, if, I would fight back to protect myself. So I said, did you fight back? And Ben, he looked at me and he said to me, Greg, if I fight back, I lose my self-respect. So I did not fight back.
Wow.
And I was like, my gosh. I was like, this is an incredible example of self-control. He was practicing that precept. He didn't want to fight somebody else. So he didn't fight the guy, no matter the provocation.
Wow.
I was like, wow. And they did that. And so they had, the solitary confinement, which was 200 beds, was empty from that day onwards, like empty. No more guys in solitary confinement. No more guys getting written up for citations. That prison actually would send, and still does, sends Mr. Hubbard a birthday card every March 13, which is his birthday. That's how much those men appreciated what his book and the application of that work had done for them.
Wow. Well,
yeah,
that is unbelievable. That's like
it is. It is.
It's like such a drastic, complete change, and thinking that these are the people in that prison are so violent and have lived that way that you, wow. All I gotta say is,
well, thank you, but I'm lucky.
Wow.
It's lucky. But you know what's the fortunate thing, Ben, is we have the correct method. It's like we have the correct data, the correct knowledge to be able to do that. Because I doubt very much because nobody else was getting those results. Nobody else. The very cool thing was all our graduates. I was getting messages from the art class, the the basic adult education class, the other Christian and Muslim groups that were setting up, that their groups were getting bigger and expanding, and it was all our greatest. All the guys that were getting their self-respect restored were now doing things positively, so that if they got out, or when they got out, they would be in better shape.
Wow.
And you know what was even...
You know, I'm going to say,
You know
too, we can go. I'm sorry. You know what? It's been such a good show. We've run out of time, and we could go for another half hour. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. But you know what? Tremendous examples. So I want to say, Criminon for prison system, the way to happiness in general, and you know, Mr. Greg Capozzorio, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Unbelievable stories. We've got to have you again. And for those of you watching, check out the Criminon program. Get it into your city, your state, your country, and check out The Way to Happiness. A great book, unbelievable results. Thank you so much. And for those of you out there, let's get some happiness. Sounds good to me. Good night.
Good night.
This show was sponsored by Atimefortruthfoundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet